Hey everyone, welcome to Chat B2B, the podcast that gives you a front row seat to AI and B2B marketing. I'm your host, Andrew Rao, co-CEO of Intercept, and on this show, we talk with enterprise marketing leaders who are scaling AI initiatives. Each episode, we explore what are they learning and what we can apply within our own organizations. Today's guest is Shaikh. He's the Senior Manager of Global Campaigns and Strategic Programs at Lenovo, specifically the Solutions and Services Group. And his team is responsible for some of Lenovo's biggest partnerships, including FIFA and F1. We get into the real experiments that his team is running, from AI-powered avatars and videos to AI-powered research. What is working? What are they iterating on? And finally, we get into a shift that every B2B marketer should be paying attention to, which is AI is no longer just a tool, but a member of the B2B buying committee. If you like what you hear, don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. This is Chat B2B. Let's get into it. So Shoeb, you're the Senior Manager for Global Campaigns and Strategic Programs at Lenovo, specifically the Solutions and Services Group. For those people who maybe find themselves more familiar with Lenovo devices versus the SSG side, can you just give folks a quick overview? What is SSG and just your role within the mix?
Yeah, for sure, Andrew. So Lenovo has been around for close to 30 years, and for a large part of those years, we've been really good at selling PCs. Recently, last 4 or 5 years, we've really gotten more powerful at selling end-to-end solutions. Right? Stuff that is redefining how digital workplaces are done, how AI is actually implemented. We are users of AI, but in the back end, a lot of the technology, a lot of the solutions are being driven by companies like ours. And one of the goals of my role over here is to help the market, help the perception of Lenovo to move forward from being, hey, they're just the PC guys, to wow, they have all these solutions. And they're really my one-stop shop for if I want to go from the hardware to the entire infrastructure or the entire solution to run my business, right? To essentially future-proof us. And that is where a lot of our investment and energy is going. So even in some of our recent, tech world announcements, we're talking much more about solutions that are transforming businesses around the world and how Lenovo can actually bring that to you. Right? Yeah. That is my role here. It's to make that exciting story a lot more available to everybody who's our customer and our prospects as well.
Yeah, I'm hearing more and more again. Obviously, Lenovo as an organization is doing very well, but the shift where people kind of see Lenovo as more of a holistic technology partner, right? Like a trusted technology partner, but one that can kind of help them in this whole AI era, which we're going to dive into more about, what that means. But and I think that's the new background you got is actually from tech world, right? And that's what that resembles is the AI era.
Absolutely. So this is a tech world background. I hope it's coming through. It's our logo. It's about how we want to help usher in or empower further the AI era, right? And Lenovo is actually that portal. It is that one technology company that can do the hardware, the software, the solution, the services to empower AI in your organization, right? And that is how we are trying to work with a lot of our customers, a lot of our partners to bring AI in a more meaningful, scalable way to our customers, right? So it's quick. We want to all get to the ROI of AI, and Lenovo can help you get there.
Which I think is actually very topical. I want to dive into that too in a minute around that piece, because I think there's a lot of discussion around how do I actually get impact, and there's a lot of talk about organizations struggling, right, in that regard. But coming back to, your role, global campaigns, strategic programs, you cover obviously a lot of ground. When you think about, identifying what's the right use case or what do you prioritize, right, with bringing AI into your workflows, your team's workflows, how do you go about doing that? Because you've got a pretty expansive landscape that you're kind of, you're accountable for.
So as a part of my role, I do all the global campaigns. So some of our big partnerships with FIFA and F1, as well as some strategic motions that we have, ABM, research, and we always have to look at AI solutions that are not only quick to deploy in one of these things, we're also result oriented, right? So we have to get from, hey, AI is great, it can do these things, but let's see how, let's test it out. And one of the things that I'm definitely trying to actively do with the team is, if you've got an idea that AI can implement, how do we make sure we try it quick and easy so that we can see the results of how it works? Because in a lot of cases, the show reel to the actual reality vastly different. And that is something that even we at Lenovo try to do for our solutions, right? Push it forward, make sure it's real, right? And that is where we're seeing a lot of use cases. One of the ones that, I really like to talk about is, we talk about AI's ability to do ads quickly, right?
Right.
So we picked a task that was pretty easy. We said, let's give AI an ad and let us ask AI to make adaptations of it. Right?
Okay.
Super simple size adapts.
Yep.
One part of what we do, we said, okay, here's the ad. Give it to me in 5 sizes. So it gave it to me in 5 sizes, but in most cases, the letters were outside of the required size. There were stuff all over the place. And like a human designer would not have done that. So AI is pretty powerful. You still need to have a human in the middle, but you definitely need to keep trying out and testing some of these things. And then it is a decision about, how much effort do we want to do to teach this AI so that it is useful in the long run? Versus give it a quick test, see if it's working, cut your losses and move on. And I think that is an important use case here.
Yeah. It's interesting because, one of my favorite quotes is, a problem well stated is a problem half solved, right? And that's one of the ways that we look at this too, of there's so many things that we can do, but what are the things that actually add value, right? And is it a problem we're solving? Like, what is the quantifiable, impact of that? Like, obviously the ad variations has a quantifiable impact. There's a direct cost to what you would have paid, right? A designer or an agency partner to do. And so it's like, okay, well, how much do we do that? What's the volume of that? And then you can start to quantify, okay, is this a worthwhile problem to solve, right?
And take the risk, right? Like, I mean, we want to be able to empower our teams to take the risk. Yeah. Because it's that leap between, hey, look at this cool video that AI can do, to how do I make it real for my organization, for me? How do I add value to it? Yeah. And then see if it's actually viable or not. Right? We would have all thought making size adapts, right? It's pretty easy. Like, get a designer to do it. It's easy. But when you lob it over to AI to do, you actually have to train the model to say, okay, think inside this box. Yeah. Right. And then you've got to decide, is this an effort or an exercise that I really want to do to train the model and really see what the long-term impact of it is. But that's it's a real use case, right? See.
Exactly. And that's it. It's like, if you know the workflows really well, you can start to pick off these individual use cases that over time accumulate to a lot of work, right? Or a lot of cost. Yeah. Now, outside of the adaptations, are there other pilots that you're either running or maybe thinking about running as an experiment?
Absolutely. So we've actually taken the challenge within Lenovo to embrace AI and show more of the measurable outcomes of using AI. So as a marketing organization, we're trying to implement it in a lot of different things. So the ad adapter is just a quick example, but we're definitely using them in research. So we are trying to figure out how AI can help us either scale or draw parallels from the data a lot faster. That is using AI to both test what we feel about our customers, using AI to act as a customer and see how the customer would respond, so that we can help train our sellers or marketers to do better. That's one aspect. The other aspect is how we can start to do more personalization at scale. We know that our customers like to hear a solution that's baked for them. And not only customers, actually people like to have the answer to their questions. Exactly. With AI, you are able to scale up and say, hey, I can answer your specific question. Let me show you how it is unique. That is another exciting bit. And then the third one that I actually like is about being able to tell stories a lot faster. In a video world that we are in, there is a lot more video consumption. So if we are able to distill a 20-page white paper into a minute and a half of a video that has a compelling outcome-driven story, but we've got a lot of insights to share, right? So we use AI to really operationalize this and have a lot more content that resonates a lot quicker, a lot faster. In fact, the most recent AI video generated Gen AI use case, we've actually been able to do that at almost 25% of the cost. So we know people are consuming video. We're now able to create that at 25% of the cost and really using that to scale how we tell more meaningful stories to our audiences. It's a lot of use cases.
That's powerful. I mean, that's a 75% reduction in cost, right, on the video production. And are those like the more AI avatar styles, or are they just like illustrative? Are they?
They are more the AI avatar styles that we're using right now. It's very interesting because we could definitely do some of these videos with, the animation styles and stuff like that. But we took a decision to say, hey, let's make a generative AI person kind of tell the story. So it showcases a person in action. And we're trying to balance this out with real world stories. So we take a real world example from our customer, and then we try to showcase what it would mean for a different customer in a different industry. Right? So really bringing together personalization, storytelling, and to be able to do this at scale is a phenomenal example of how we're trying to bring AI. Yeah,
I love that. I think that I think avatars have come a long way. Like when they were, as people say, it's sort of that uncanny valley of like it's not quite there in terms of realism. And I think that in some extent, maybe we have a little bit more way to go. But in our experience with the AI avatars, I mean, look, they speak 180 languages. You can create custom, like, you can create your own personas. And I know that, for example, at Qualcomm, one of their use cases is actually taking a video that's produced in English and actually dubbing over with obviously the mouth movements, but taking the actor itself and actress themselves. So I think you're right. I think video, there's a ton of opportunity there. And that's again, something that is not just more cost efficient, but, something that, is a new capability to be able to do that in however many languages, right? And in real time. So
I think the nuance here is we like to consume content that is personalized to us.
Yes.
Right. So as we have this great tool that adds value in customization and personalization, that's when we use it to tell compelling stories.
Yeah.
There is still an element of video that needs to be produced at scale and all of that. And that is a path that is working. But for more impactful, more personalized storytelling, this is a great value addition. Right. And I resonate with it too. Like I watch a video, I'm like, oh, I wonder what would happen if I was in this scenario.
Right.
Now you can find out. Right.
Yeah.
You have the tools or the capabilities to find out, make this for me. Right.
Yeah.
So it's phenomenal.
Personalization is the ultimate pursuit that is not a new pursuit, but one that we couldn't really have done well before. Right. Like it's not possible, like it's cost prohibitive to do that. But with AI, like, as you and I have talked about before, is you can create these one-of-one engines, right? So we're even, pushing that into content. As you think about white papers and ebooks, how do you take a single asset and make it a one-of-one where if, Shoeb, global mandate, campaign strategic programs, you download it, how do you get a different asset as opposed to somebody as, myself, on strategy, right, within a marketing services organization? So that, I think, is really the unlock. And I think you're right. And that's multiple modalities, right? That's not just written, it's video, as you said. So, yeah.
And in fact, like, because of this, and we're seeing this with our solutions buyers as well, right? They want to be able to tell their story to their stakeholders.
Yes.
So what you are now doing is empowering your customers, empowering your storytellers, right? To be able to take your content and then add to that in their own personalized way. we all have great stories that we like to tell, and now I'm allowing you to use content to tell that story within your organization too, because of the power of personalizing this. So it's a lot more personal. When I look at the impact of research to me, to my company, to my buying habits, and with the power of AI now, you are able to customize it like never before.
Yeah.
So it is a use case that is now fastly exploding. It is something that we are using, and I think the potential is immense because the value that it is giving to the buyer, to the buying group, phenomenal. Right? I can tell my own story.
Yeah, from your perspective, and depending on where you sit on the buying committee, you could tell the right story to the CFO, the COO, the chief legal officer, right? It's a bit of a different version of that story. Do you find as like a technology organization that's really sort of at the frontier of this, do you feel added pressure to be able to bring in these like, as people say, dog food or drink your own champagne? Do you feel that pressure?
So yes, right. Like we have embraced the pressure and we've kind of challenged ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. Because as users, we now consume a lot of AI content. We use AI to make a lot of decisions, validate decisions, inquire and understand. We also try to use that to then empower how we turn up in the marketplace. Right. So we're trying to take that more as a challenge of how do I drive efficiency, scale, improvements by using some of the AI. And even if you look across your personal habits, right? A lot of our discovery journeys are now starting with AI. Hey.
Yes. Yeah.
What do you think about this? How do I do this? Right?
That's right.
What are the 5 questions I should ask? And if we're doing that in our own personal capacities, that is soon going to expand into our organizational decision making. Yeah. Right? So it is an interesting challenge as buying groups become more complex, as the discovery of what your solutions could be become more AI driven. As a marketer, our challenge is to now turn up where our customers are looking for information.
Yeah.
Right? So
sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
So just like rounding it off, right? Like we have to turn up where people are searching for things. So if people are searching for things using AI, how do I now convince not only the customer, the human, that, hey, this is a good prospect, let's start exploring, but I now have to additionally convince the AI to kind of view my content in the same way. Right. So my customers have increased, my prospects have increased, and the way that I have to utilize my content, it is an interesting, a phenomenal challenge that is influencing buying decisions today more than ever before, right? And we've got to get ahead of it.
It's completely transforming. And I know I want to dig into that one shortly, because you're right. It's like AI is becoming sort of the intermediaries, right, between a lot of our clients and the decision makers right across the buying committee. To add some sort of data to this, Watchtower is we've got an AI powered research platform, and so at this point, our B2B marketing audience is around 550,000 B2B marketers specifically around the world. And so we looked at what were the conversations related to initiatives that they're going to scale in 2026. And so the top 5 were AI research assistants, which you mentioned research was one of your workflows, multi-agent workflows, AI search, AI campaign orchestration, and agentic campaign orchestration. So a lot of automation. Obviously, you mentioned research, search. Obviously, that's transforming with GEO. How does that kind of list compare to maybe what you're prioritizing within your team? I mean, you mentioned research already, so that's kind of one for one. What are your thoughts on that?
So we're trying a lot of different things, right? We're definitely trying the research, we're trying the campaign orchestration, we're trying the personalization. But I think the challenge that we are kind of getting over is there's a lot of different types of AI that you can deploy and implement.
Yep.
There's a lot of different verticals where some have gotten really good, some are getting better. Yep. And then you as an organization have to make a choice about, do we want to put all of our fingers in the honey jar or just one honey jar at a time, right? Like, so that is a balance that we're trying to do. And And I believe the role of the human in all of this is still important, right? Human in the middle. If nobody looks at the outcomes of some of our research, we just say, hey, I said it and let's do it. We want to be sure that there is a human in the middle. It is looking at some of the aspects, and that becomes a scale question. Can I hand over everything to AI? Sure. Will I?
Yeah.
Probably not today, right? So we still have some time to get there.
Yeah, you're right, because it's ultimately, as humans, we're accountable for the decisions and the outputs, and so you can't blame Bob the agent for messing that up, right? It's on us, right? It's on us. Yeah, it's the things too that when I see this list, it shows me that I think, as you had mentioned, a lot of us are thinking about how do we create this sort of 10x impact of how do you create like workflows, like end-to-end workflows that can actually do these outputs, right? And there's sort of the different two modes of thinking. There's like the 10% thinking, which is like, how do I get 10% better, versus 10x, which is how do I completely transform these workflows? And I think that's kind of where a lot of our clients are kind of like, their head is at how do we transform workflows, but they are also handcuffed to some degree with obviously, the pace that internally they can move. And, compliance and privacy obviously is really important, data protection, particularly for global enterprises. But there is that tension that I do see, which is I want to move really, really fast, but internally we're not built to move that fast. And that's a struggle for these global, I mean, I'm preaching to the choir here, but you live it every day in some respects.
It's an interesting challenge, right? Like, as organizations become larger, there is a much bigger risk factor involved. So I recall we wanted to try an AI bot or an AI agent to do something. We thought, hey, this is quick and easy.
Yep.
Let's pick it up. Let's see what happens, and let's deploy it. And then we bounced it over to procurement and said, guys, simple project. Let's get this out the door.
Yeah.
They're actually looking at it in a lot more scrutiny, because the impact of deploying something like that for a larger organization has wide-ranging reach. So they have to make sure that a lot of their checks and balances are in place. So and oftentimes you find the early innovators who want to take a technology and drive 10x improvement. Like, let's do it 10 factors. And then you have parts of the organization whose job is to ensure continuity, security, safety. And then you've got to figure out how do we kind of work together in this? Because you can move fast and break things. And sometimes it's okay. It's okay to break things and fail and figure it out and obviously take that risk. Yeah. But some of these existing systems are in place to make sure that we don't break the whole system. Right. So
don't break the important things.
Don't break the important things. Right. So I think that balance is important. And being in marketing, being in, that side of the organization where people say, hey, can we try this out? Let's see what happens. I love to push boundaries and say, let's do it. Right? Let's give it a shot. And then we need the functions to look at it in larger pictures. It's like, this is great, but the risk is too big, right? Because you have to see the larger picture. And I think as organizations implement or adopt AI more, you will start to see the use case for pre-existing solutions built, right? So if somebody has used it once and you have seen ROI from it, can I buy that? Is it repeatable? Is it scalable? And then it kind of circles back to your initial point. If it's repeatable and scalable, it's probably not getting you 10x. It's getting you 10%, right? And you've got to figure out where you are or what project it is that you're working on, where you want to go all the way, figure out incremental gains, right? And bring the entire organization along.
Yeah, and you got to experiment, right? And my second favorite quote is on experiments, which is, if you know it's going to work, it's not an experiment. No. So you have to be able to take a real risk. So I wanted to ask you, how do you build that sort of risk appetite internally or navigate some of these conversations? And just your thoughts on not just fail fast and break stuff, but failing smart. I know that you've talked about before about everything doesn't have to be successful. Let's be honest and transparent on this is an experiment. We don't know how it's going to go. What's your perspective on that? And then how do you have these conversations internally?
So I think as a goal, I've kind of taken it up to try things, knowing well within the risk appetite that the organization is ready for.
Right.
Right. Because if something works well, like you rightly said, it's probably not an experiment.
Right.
And if it works well, you've got to scale it. But if it doesn't work, your opportunity to learn, to grow, to improve is far more. So even you within the team here, when let's try something risky. Let's break the barriers to what everybody thinks is normal, and let's try something different. And in fact, there are a couple of examples that we've implemented AI. It's not worked. We've recognized it's not worked. And now we are in a position to say, okay, if you want to make it work for this is the kind of effort that is required to put into it. And this is the ultimate long-term vision of it.
Right.
So now you've got this interesting point where it's like, we know the capabilities of the system. So either we have to invest to upskill, uptrain the people, the system, the AI, the data, and therefore here's the outcome. Or now we can start to look at different alternatives, right? Maybe different solutions, different AI, in-house, outsourcing. But we wouldn't have got here if we didn't try. We would have studied here's the potential, right? Like the unaddressed potential is always much larger than if you try it out. And the benefit is trying out some of these things.
Yeah, and you have to try. I mean, I was just chatting with a global MSP called Adastra, and I'm hosting one of their fireside chats later this week, and they are a global MSP, but they had one of their clients, which was the Mark Anthony Group, who makes food and beverage, or a global food and beverage company. And one of their heads of AI was talking about, look, we actually had to set up a real incubator to test a lot of these things. We had to sandbox it because we had to set the expectation that a lot of these things are not going to work. Yeah. And so it was also like a mindset shift that the organization needed to have in order to really embrace it, because you have to embrace, the way they put it is like, not necessarily fail fast, but learn fast, right? It's like, okay, it's a failure, but you're going to learn something. And I've seen organizations like Fannie Mae as an example that actually, this was sort of, let's go back, this is almost 6 years ago, where they introduced this concept of, they called it Friday failures, which was, I know it was brave, right? You had leaders that would gather with their teams on Fridays and share the things that didn't work and what they learned from it. And this is all in the context of transformation and modernization and so forth. And so I think that we're going to have to learn a lot. We're going to have to stub our toe, but you have to have the risk appetite to at least stub your toe, and it's okay. You're going to learn,
And this is a great example. So in the early days of using AI for research, right, we asked our AI model, here's all the research that we've done on our buying group, on our personas, consume it. And it did. And then we started asking the model, okay, tell me, what do you think the conversation groups will be for these people?
Oh, yeah.
Right. And in a lot of cases, the results were pretty generic.
Right.
Whereas the data showed that people would actually like to get a little bit more specific.
Interesting. Okay.
And that's an interesting point where we had to look at this and say, okay, I think it understands the essence of the research.
Yes.
It understands how to dissect the data and give us different variations of it. But if I had to use the data, the model as it is right now, and if I were to throw a question saying, knowing what you know, can you tell me, would this pitch work? We would have to take it with a grain of salt.
Yes,
right?
of course.
And that is an interesting exercise, because for us, we had to train the model, we had to invest the time, we had to put a lot of the research in it to figure out that actually we've got something out of it that is not what we intended. Super useful.
Yes.
It did not drive the original purpose, but we still were able to experiment with it enough to figure out, okay, now we've got this different tool that we can use to drive more meaningful conversations. And what we've been able to do with that kind of output is, whenever we have new offerings and new products come through, we always take it back to the data and say, hey, we know our segment, we understand this offering. Where do you think we should start the conversation?
Yeah.
Right. And it is able to give us from the data saying, here, why don't we consider these 3 or 4 routes now? Because it's obviously learned and it's gotten better at it.
Yeah.
But that is a time investment with AI that I think everybody has to be ready to make, right? It's the investment in the future outcomes.
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's a great example, because you know that there's potential there.
Yeah.
You know that if you continue to train the model, you're going to get more value. So you have conviction there. And I think the other thing too is, you think about it, if it's better than the team sort of like flipping a coin, if it's still directional, there's some directional guidance there that is valid, it's still valuable. It's just, how do you get it even more specific in your use cases, and all that comes with training and time. But I think if people expect, and this goes back to, I think, your ROI point earlier, is like, what's the ROI of AI? I think that the revenue side is a lagging indicator.
Yeah.
If you do things right and you've got the conviction, and you're working on your pilots, you're iterating and you're proving them out, it will generate revenue. But it is not, if you expect that to come so easily and immediately, you're never going to get past this first base, so to speak.
That's a great way to look at it, right? Like, when you look at AI, revenue, sure, one way of measuring, right?
Yeah.
And in marketing, in our organization, we've picked up, how do we define the ROI of the AI that we're implementing? We're trying to look at it from a couple of different things. Revenue is the most important one, but we also try to look at it as efficiency. How are we able to drive efficiency using AI?
Yes.
How are we able to drive scale using AI? How are we able to drive personalization using AI? All the things that allow us to turn up more meaningfully in front of customers, and how are we measuring them? Now, we're figuring it out, right? We've not got the answers, but at least by being able to expand how our organization looks at the benefits of AI implementation, we are establishing parameters that we can improve. So we may have some projects that purely drive efficiency, ultimately leading to revenue. We have some projects that drive purely personalization, ultimately leading to revenue. But we are able to experiment on more parameters than just revenue alone, right? Which allows us to expand on the types of experiments, expand on the types of use cases. Because if somebody turned around and asked me, how much revenue did that one AI generated video generate, right? What? That's interesting, right?
But I would say you go back to, any sort of marketing activity or even sales activity, and say, well, hey, what was the direct response from that? And in many cases, we can't quantify it, right? Like, it is a correlation, not necessarily direct causation. And even if it's you use a last touch attribution. Well, this is the last thing. Well, events was the last thing that they went to. Does that mean that events is what's driving the revenue? Not necessarily. It's all this stuff that we did leading up to it, right? So attribution, I think, is such a tricky one. Obviously, something that is very topical in the news that's always, coming up, which is AI's impact on headcount, right? And so in the Watchtower study, like I said, over 500,000 B2B marketers specifically, when we asked them how do they expect their headcount to change this year in 2026, a lot of it was, I'll read these out. These are reduce roles, the AI was 17%, centralize also AI roles 17%, freezing new hiring 15%. So maybe speaking on behalf of yourself and not necessarily in Lenovo, how do you think AI impacts team design? Like, what is your perspective on that one? Because that's such a tricky one, and lots of news on related to this coming up, obviously. What's your perspective?
I think this is an interesting one, right? AI as a tool has now allowed us to generate a lot more value within the same amount of resources.
Yeah,
right?
I agree.
So even you as a user, you now have access to a lot of tools, of course, within your organization guidance, that you can use to generate a lot more value.
Yes.
And now you have this opportunity where you can become a value generator.
Yes.
Right. So if you are on the side of the organization and you're pitching up a role that allows you to use AI to generate value, you have a far more valuable tool set at your disposal.
Yes.
So your value as an employee within an organization exponential thanks to AI. The ones where there is a little bit more risk is if you're looking at the opportunity in front of you and you're saying, you know what, I'm happier to continue to take orders, to execute faster. I think that is the side that I would, encourage to embrace AI to drive efficiency,
Yes.
drive scale. Because ultimately, AI is a tool that is going to help us drive efficiency and scale, and that is how users, employees need to use it, right? So overall, will it impact the shape of the organization? Will it impact the usage or the organizational structure? I think it will drive a lot more value to the people who are able to embrace it and use it.
Yes.
And it is not that you need to become a coder overnight and figure out stuff. I'm not either, but I'm a user. And I think with the right mentality, you can get ahead of it. So I think organizations will see the impact of AI and will take the benefit of the value that it drives.
Yeah.
And you just got to decide on which side of that value coin as a user you want to be.
I like that perspective, and I believe that because I think that, rather than sort of victimizing oneself, you can say, this can absolutely empower me. And so when I think about, and I've mentioned this before, but when I think about previous technologies, and I know AI is very unique in the acceleration, but you go back to the 70s where they launched the ATM, right? The automated teller machine. And, the prediction or the forecast was that we are not going to need tellers in a matter of years. And so when they did the study to look at how did ATMs impact tellers employed, and it was about, I think 20 or 30 year span, the compound annual growth rate was 43%. So we actually grew the number of tellers as a society, as a workforce, by 43%. There was an initial state where it contracted.
Yeah.
And then it grew. And so when you look at the data, the thing that I see is that what people as tellers weren't automated out of a job, they were automated out of bank telling, which is like giving money, receiving money. Like you go to a teller, you can go at, like, you're talking about your mortgages and your like more complex things, right? Like to your point, they're elevated. So I think we will see a net positive, but to your point, it's a mindset. Are you going to look at yourself as a victim, or are you going to look at yourself as, I'm empowered to create value?
Absolutely.
It's all perspective.
I think that's a great example, right? Like over history, you've always seen a lot of these new technologies, and there's a lot of fear when you have new technologies come to market. The credit card, oh my God, we're not going to need cash ever again. Right. Like cars, what are all these horses going to do? Right? Like we've had a lot of these technologies that have really changed the way humans get around, do work, spend money, spend time. And in a lot of cases, the fear around what is going to happen to the old way of life quickly transforms into, how am I going to use this to add value to the old way of life, right?
Yeah.
And we have a lot of these tools now that are unlocking exponential value potential.
Yes.
Right? We're able to do so much more in almost the same amount of time with almost the same amount of resources.
Yeah.
And it is so much more meaningful to our customers, to our prospects, to our company, right? It is about embracing that and being able to drive value from that and being on the right side of that choice. Because at the same time, you have detractors. Like with every piece of technology, you say, hey, this is not going to work out. Which is fine. Everybody has their place. You need the cynics to kind of challenge you to do more with what you have. And I think that balance is important. And it's also different teams in the organization adopt AI at different paces.
Yes.
Which is absolutely fine, right? Which is a learning curve that the entire organization can go through.
Yeah.
And that is essentially what a lot of us at Lenovo are doing too. Like different organizations have picked up AI for different sizes and scales.
Yeah.
And I think marketing has been one that has picked it up and said, we're going to do it all. We're going to try it all. Sure. Not all of it will work out. We're going to take those learnings and we're going to allow the teams that work with us to be able to embrace those learnings, figure out what to do, and then move forward from there. Right? But you have to have one of those groups that is ahead of the curve and really pushing the limits to what AI can do for you. And marketing has taken up that challenge.
Well, kudos to you and the team on that, because I think that there's a lot of, I would say that that's more of an exception than the standard right now. I think a lot of people are a little bit hesitant, and it sounds like there's the right culture to say, let's experiment, let's try, truly experiment. Obviously, we want this to be successful, but not everything can be. You know, your point on the value generation, it reminded me of there's a pretty big AI conference called MACON that happens in the fall in Cleveland, and so we're partners in terms of, I'll do either a keynote or we've got sort of a session there. And one of the keynotes from the few months ago was one of the founders, Jeremiah Ouyang from Blitzscale Ventures. And so he talked about how before it was how many employees you had and all that. The metric is now changing to sort of revenue per head. And so they looked at SaaS companies, which I think was around an average SaaS company is around 250,000 revenue per employee. They said a sales force or somebody that obviously is like a dominant player in the space is closer to 400,000, 450,000. And do you know what that number is for SF startups, like San Francisco-based startups? Like I didn't know either. Like he was telling 2 million, 2 million per head. And so I think to your point on value generator, this is an example how if you're an AI native organization, and it doesn't mean you don't have, you could still be human first, right? But if you are AI native or AI forward, that's the kind of value that each one of us can have in the, like, that's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So just put some numbers on it.
It kind of transcends across, right? So you now have a workforce that can add value to your work.
Yes.
Right? It is, and you have to decide how you want to use it. It can be doing a lot of the repetitive work. It can be questioning all the thought work that you're doing, asking the tough questions, right? Challenge me on these 3 things. And how can I make this better? And you have now the capability using some of the existing AI models to pretty much try out and challenge yourself to do better.
Yeah.
And you can pick, right? And
And I was just going to say, speaking of challenges, in the study, we asked these B2B marketers, what are your biggest organizational blockers to adopting AI and embracing AI? And I'll read you out some of the top responses here. Limited AI skills, no training program, no AI governance, too many tools, and limited IT support. And I, to me, what was interesting is that none of these were technology problems.
Yeah.
They're all people problems. So I just curious, what's your reaction to that on that finding?
So I think it's unique, right?
Yeah.
Like as organizations are being born in the AI world, their challenges are unique too, right? A lot of these organizations are born AI ready. So they're able to ramp up from get-go to 100 people, 50 people pretty fast.
Yeah.
That's when scale has a lot wider reach. And I think I'll give you an example for our organization. We have a couple of these AI opportunities that we wanted to explore. So it was a pretty quick route to market. We said, let's try it out. And our biggest blocker for making it happen was procurement. So procurement wanted to look at it and say, wait, what exactly is the outcome of this? And how is it going to impact the rest of the business? So it was less about the technology behind it. It was less doubt in the implementation. It was more about what else.
Yeah.
And I think as our organization is growing up, as AI adoption use cases is growing faster, I think you'll start to see more of these types of challenges come out, right? You have to experiment. We would have never known that the biggest challenge to implementing AI is not the model, it's not the infrastructure, it's our procurement guidelines.
Yeah.
Right. So even if we had all of those things checked off and procurement's like, whoa, hold on a second, right? Yeah. So it is pretty interesting. In fact, this reminds me of GDPR. Yes. Back in the day when GDPR was a thing, everybody was like, okay, this is great. It's going to change the way we do business. And there was this guy who would always think, but where is all of our data? Right. So I think we're now getting into that wave where everyone's saying, let's get AI. And then people are asking more meaningful questions of AI for what? Yeah. Right? How do you categorize this? Is this internal? Is it confidential?
Yes.
Where is the data? What is it learning from? And I think a lot of that is how real challenges are going to be dealt with as we're kind of going through this AI wave, right? As we're in the middle of this AI wave.
It's you raised such a good point because I mean just on data, like data assets are becoming obviously even more valuable, right? And so I think as the models become somewhat commoditized, where like the leaderboard's changing, month to month, quarter over, well, really month to month at this point, it is like, well, how do you protect that data too? And I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but I feel things are moving back on-prem in a way of like, people are they're pumping a ton of very confidential stuff into some of these baseline models that you just no longer have ownership of a lot of that data. I just don't see how there's going to be so much information sprawl and data sprawl that companies are going to want to protect that and bring that back in. I mean, obviously with your infrastructure group would be able to see this, but is that also like, is that what you're seeing too? Like there's a trend to move back to on-prem in a way, or?
So I think the answer to this is kind of twofold, right? One is as models get smarter, we want to be able to train them better.
Yeah.
Right. One. And a lot of these models rely on being able to understand a data source that is unique to your business.
Yes.
And as we get into more data, more AI models, businesses will start to realize if they have a store of data that is unique to them, that is their business IP, they want to be able to protect that as opposed to give it out to the cloud. Let everybody train. Right?
Yeah.
So I think the investment on hybrid AI data, right?
Yes.
Databases, AI models that work both in the cloud, where you can store a lot, as well as on-prem, is the next wave of AI evolution. Even for marketing, we want to be able to make quick AI decisions based on what we have, what is available, what is accessible to us, and protect all of our customer information, keep it close to us in well-protected servers, as well as take advantage of the larger models. So we're always moving between these two types of data deployments and these two types of models, right?
Yeah.
And essentially that is how we see more organizations embracing AI.
Right.
Because think of it this way, if you've ever been to a doctor or a hospital recently, a lot of the ability to take a lot of that data and run it through an AI model and come up with scenarios, you don't want that data to take a round trip to the cloud and come back. And it's not only expensive, it's bad for the environment. You can do a lot of that compute within the four walls of your hospital. And that is some of the technology that we as a company are now developing and implementing in a lot of hospitals as well. Keeping the data close to us, keeping the data close to the users, keeping the data close to the people who need it.
Yeah.
Right? And it is an interesting time because we're moving away from send everything to the cloud.
Yeah.
Let's figure out what is the best use case for this, right?
Yeah.
It just needs to be on a PC, right? No.
Well, that's it, right? Now you've got on-device AI capabilities directly, and so I do think that as the models advance, they get more efficient, and they will be able to run directly on the device. Like today's, we use ChatGPT as an example because it's the most well-known, right? But or Claude, the frontier model today, give it 6 months or a year, you could probably run that locally on the device because it's going to get more and more efficient. So I think paired with our energy crisis, we don't have enough energy to be able to, if you wanted to send everything to the cloud and put this in these massive data centers, you're just not going to be able to do that. So I think the device and on-prem is actually making this come back in a way, I think it is really going to your point on hybrid. You're going to need both.
Yeah.
But it's not like before, which it was just push everything to the cloud, which I felt that was the direction.
Yeah.
So
I think like we're going through this wave now. Even our devices have a lot of AI capabilities on it, right? Like it's not just organizations who want to keep data close to them, but users too.
Yeah, it's true.
You can do creators now like to keep a lot of their content close.
Yeah.
They want to use that on-prem on their device, right? They want to be able to do that. And I think as our portfolio of connections into the AI sphere expand, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to be able to decide as a user, as an organization, what do I need? Do I need the speed? Do I need the safety? Do I need the security? Do I need the scale? Right? How do I plan for both my data, my organization's data to make sure it's giving me the right solution? And as a organization, we want to be able to give you the option to do
yes.
It's not one size fits all. Everybody send it to the cloud. It's not. Right? It's like, let's talk about your use cases. A lot of our solutions engineers do exactly that.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with this data? How soon do you need it? What's your implementation look like? Here are our solutions that help you do that. So like it's keeping a lot of it close by. And these are not easy decisions, right? In fact, AI is now even involved in the decision making, which is phenomenal, right? AI is part of the decision making journey, and that is really spurring how we turn up as customers too. How do we engage with our buying group in a meaningful way with meaningful content, with relevant content, and start to drive that conversation.
One of the points that caught my attention in the studies that we're running is that marketers are clearly looking to produce content for AI. In fact, when we looked at how B2B buying is going to change in 2026 because of AI, I think the number one response was producing content for AI. Now, I know before you had mentioned something like a couple of years ago, that number was 40 some odd percent or something like that. Tell us more on that, because I find this really interesting, and what are we going to do about that? How are we going to pivot, given that AI is becoming the intermediary?
So we did some research about 2 years ago. We looked at our buyers and we looked at how they are making decision journeys.
Okay.
What is their decision points? And in fact, in that, AI and generative AI or search-based AI was one of the fastest growing categories for discovery.
Yep.
Now, we're 2 years since that research has come, so I'm sure it's much more important now. But 2 years ago, that was on the uptick. And 2 years ago, when we had that challenge and we looked at what we could do, the options for us to work with AI to empower it so that it has all the right content to provide to its users the right decisions were pretty limited.
Yeah.
Today we're getting into a space where we can talk to AI more meaningfully. Right? We can say, hey, here's our point of view. You can take it from a lot of different places. You can optimize the way you want to generate content for a person who's searching for stuff. But 2 years ago, we had no way of doing that. So I think this has two impacts for us. One, as AI is becoming more involved in our customers' decision process, right? It is turning up at the discovery stage. It is turning up at the evaluation stage. It is turning up as a co-buyer.
Yes.
What is the role as marketers that we can take up to influence everybody in the buying committee, which now also includes an AI agent? So how do we empower not only the humans in the middle, but how do we empower the AI bots? And this is where we use generative engine optimization. How do we optimize our content to become relevant to models like this? And I think as we grow up, as AI becomes more ubiquitous across everything that we do, I think that is the next frontier. Back when SEO was a thing, what are people really searching for? Right? That was the thing. How do I have my website talk about Italian food when everyone's hungry? Right? Nobody searches for I am hungry. They search for what kind of food do I want to eat? We're now getting into that phase with AI too. How do we tell the AI model, hey, listen, you might be hungry,
right?
But you won't come to us for the subs, right? That's the model.
Always the food metaphors, right? Always the food metaphors. No, I love it. I think that I feel like we could do a whole episode on this because one, now we're seeing obviously a paid entry model with ChatGPT with ads. And obviously there's a lot of debate on that. Then there's the organic path, as you had mentioned, which I think is so powerful because I think that people are relying on AI heavily in B2B buying decisions. And AI is basically rewriting perception in a way, because if AI has conviction that, let's say, Lenovo makes the best servers to run local AI models, which in many cases it does, I think that the buying committee, that is going to influence the buying committee. Yeah. I think there's more trust that they put on these outputs. And actually, it might even be even more impactful for the line of business folks. Like obviously, as we target IT and line of business, where the line of business are increasingly being involved, right? As we know, in these buying decisions, but maybe they don't have the technical acumen or insight, and they might be leaning more heavily on these models. So it is, I think you're right. It is such a large frontier opportunity to be able to win.
Yeah, I think the role of AI in the buying group is a friend, is an advisor, is a consultant, right? And we all love our consultants, but we have to take the information they give us and we have to distill it down for ourselves.
Yes.
But it is, even if we disagree with them, we always consider them.
Yes.
And I think that is an important stakeholder for us to deal with now. It's just like back in the day when we had to turn up on page number 1 of search to be considered. Because nobody's going to page 256 to say, let me click on link 4 on this page and see what the answer is.
That's right.
So I think that is the kind of world that we live in now, where we have to make sure we turn up in a meaningful way. But the challenge is not the same as with search, because people are not as simple with their prompts anymore.
Exactly.
So people are getting a lot more complex in what they want to achieve out of this answer. So they're asking a lot more meaningful questions. And that is where our role of marketers is important, right? We don't want to say, hey, if the guy is searching for these 3 keywords, turn up this ad all the time, right? Like we've got to be meaningful in the context that the buyer is actually using to find the solution. And that is a challenge, right? And that is a challenge that we've got to tackle. Honestly, we have to figure it out. We're experimenting. This is one of the things that I'm happy to learn fast and implement. But it is how we use AI to benefit what our buyers are doing.
I can share a little bit about some of the insights that we've had so far on this, which is, first of all, the before we built our GEO platform, we did look at Profound and some of the others, and what we found with them is while they're great platforms in general for GEO, they are really built for consumer.
Yeah.
And so when we would look, our CTO and our team would look at the underlying prompts that's being generated, it's very consumer. And these are not realistic prompts that people send. So then when you start to see some of the data back that says X% on Reddit or like you see the source breakdown, that will change drastically depending on what the prompt is and the specificity of the prompt. So one of the ways that we got around this was we actually, when we built our GEO platform, we interviewed IT decision makers and business decision makers to say, hey, if this was the scenario, what would be the prompt that you would use? And so we consider that, okay, that's your ground truth data asset, right? So it's like, okay, you've got that. Now, what you need to do then is generate prompts that are, if you're an awareness or consideration or purchase, like depending on what stage, I mean, it's not always obviously linear, but depending on buying intent, how does that change? And you need to run thousands of prompts. So we would put in sort of 500-600 per model. Say you run that across the 5 major models, like somewhere around 3,000. But the platforms that we saw, you would run 12 or 20. We're like, this is too small. So there's a couple things that we found. There's that we abbreviated into this acronym called BETA, BETA. And so B stands for best for, which is you have to produce, when you think about content strategies, who is it best for? You have to make that declaration, right? It's like, we are the best model for da 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 da. The E is evidence, so you need proof points, which what we find is that if the proof sounds like bullshit, the model knows it's bullshit. So if it's like, this is 500%, 20 times, you actually seen the reasoning that the model says, this doesn't sound believable. So there's the believable evidence, I should say. The T stands for trade-off. This is the toughest part that we are having conversations with our clients, which is T is about who are you not best for?
Yeah.
And try and take that back to the product team to go, who are we going to state that we are not the best use case for and they should look for an alternative? And they're like, no. We're good for everybody. And so if you don't declare that, the models will come up with an answer, but the folks that are declaring who they're not best for actually are ranking higher. Yeah. And then the A is answerability, which is format, making it really snackable. So like we call it beta because not only does it line up from a word standpoint, but it is going to change.
Yeah.
It's going to be different pillars as the models, reason differently and all that. Anyway, I'm going off on a rant. I think that GEO, you're right, I think is going to be the frontier to win.
Yes, I think that's a good model, right? That's a good way for a conversation to start, whether it's with a human or with an AI. That's a great way to establish credibility. And I think the challenge for us as marketers is it is extremely difficult to tell somebody, hey, I don't think that's the right customer for this.
Yeah.
Right? Like, because you can change the prompt in a couple of ways and it was like, okay, now he is kind of the right customer, right? So it is extremely challenging to say, I understand who this is really good for.
Yeah.
And here's why. And also who this may not be that good for, and here's why.
Yeah.
But our product conversations, our seller conversations would be like, this is great for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So as a marketer, you've got to be able to take that insight and translate into what are people really searching for.
Yes.
Because if I had to take it back to my food analogy, everybody who's hungry could eat Italian food.
Yeah.
But not everybody who is hungry is eating Italian food, right?
Yeah.
Like you've got your audience for it based on their needs and their personas and all of that. So, and people will always search for what's good food near me.
Yes, that's right.
The answer is not always Italian food, right? So
yeah.
I like Italian food if you haven't got it, but still.
Yeah, me too. I'm a huge fan. No, I think there's so much to get into on that. I'm sure you and I will chat more on this on the GEO side. So Shoeb, I know you're a busy guy, so I'll ask you one last question, which is, you look ahead to the next 12 months, which sounds like a decade, right? In this whole AI era, but let's say 12 months out. What are you most excited about? What are you most cautious of as you look forward?
I think for me, 12 months is something I'm a little cautious of because the modeling can change so much in 12 months, right? Yeah. So what we're definitely trying to do, what I'm trying to do is look at the near term with as much focus as the long term. And a lot of times you have to pick one, which is the toughest thing that we go through now. But we have to be able to establish wins for today and experiments for today that will impact the long term. Yeah. And I think that is where we are really trying to dabble in what we do, how we adapt technology. But I think for the long term, it is an extremely exciting time. We now have the opportunity to train a customer, to talk to a customer, to understand a customer that for the first time can talk back to you and actually tell you what they're thinking. Right? Yeah. AI will tell you why this is not working for them. Yeah. And now the challenge for us is, okay, now I know exactly what you need to hear. How do I tell you and the people that you want to convey this to in a meaningful way? Right? So in the next 12 months, I think that journey of AI as my customer to AI as my channel is going to be an extremely interesting one for marketeers across the world to pick up. How do I express my product, solution, challenge to AI so that they can help educate further? And I think that is something that is going to really impact the way buying will change in definitely the next year.
Shoeb, great perspectives, and I love the genuine enthusiasm that I share too around this is an exciting time to be in marketing. It's an exciting time to be in knowledge work. I know that there's a lot of fear and uncertainty right now, but I do think that to your points on take that perspective of being a value generator, rethinking some of the traditional ways of doing things and having the realistic perspective on not everything is going to work, and that's okay, right? Let's go figure it out together. So on that note, Shoeb, thank you so much for joining us. Great conversation, and excited to have you on again.
Yes, for sure. Thank you so much. Thank you for the great conversation. I think this has been a phenomenal partnership, and thank you for some challenging questions, right? Like it's always interesting to see what else we can do. So thank you for the opportunity.